They told you Jesus came to make you obedient, to follow rules, sit quietly in church, and wait for heaven. But what if I told you the real teachings of Jesus were never about submission? They were about awakening. And what if the most powerful truths he shared were hidden, edited, or completely erased for centuries, right under your nose? This isn't just history, it's a blueprint that was buried. These forgotten teachings spoke of consciousness, divine union, and the kingdom of God, not as a place beyond the clouds, but as a power within you. They weren't meant to control you, they were meant to set you free. And freedom, as you'll soon see, is dangerous to those in power. If you're the kind of person who feels there's something deeper, something nobody ever explained in Sunday school, then this journey is for you. And if you're serious about uncovering these truths, I invite you to subscribe to this channel right now, not just to watch, but to wake up alongside others on the same path, because what you're about to hear may challenge everything you thought you knew about Jesus. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand why the truth was hidden and why it's finally resurfacing now. There's a reason why so many people feel like something's missing in their spiritual journey. It's not that they lack faith, it's that the deeper teachings of Jesus were buried under centuries of interpretations, traditions, and edits. Imagine finding a hidden map that was never meant to be lost, yet generation after generation, it was rewritten to fit a narrative. That's what happened to the real wisdom behind the kingdom of God, and most people never even knew. They were reading a filtered version of it. What if I told you that some of the most powerful spiritual tools weren't removed, they were just carefully concealed? It's almost like Jesus left clues in plain sight, but only for those with eyes to see. These weren't teachings about rules or rituals. They were about transformation, elevation, and discovering the kingdom of God within. But here's the catch. You had to be willing to question everything you've been told. Think about it. Why would someone so revolutionary, so disruptive to religious norms, have such a tame message in today's textbooks? The truth is, Jesus shook the foundations of the world, not just with love, but with radical awareness. And those teachings, they were never meant for the crowd. They were seeds buried, deep waiting for minds brave enough to dig. And digging, that's where things start to get mystical. Jesus never intended to create a religion as we know it today. He was pointing inwards, not towards stone temples or unquestionable dogmas. His teachings were like mirrors, inviting everyone to look beyond the surface and see their own divine reflection. He talked about transformation, but not the kind that depends on rituals. It was an internal revolution, abandoning the old self and awakening the Christ within. This transformation doesn't come from repeating pretty words, but from experiencing the kingdom of God in every thought and action. When Jesus said, "Be reborn," he wasn't talking about repeating religious formulas. He was referring to a leap in consciousness, something so profound that it changes the way you see the world and how the world responds to you. It's as if you exchanged cloudy lenses for clear, vibrant vision. And interestingly, this idea resonates with mystical traditions from various cultures. Sufis call it the death of the ego, Buddhists call it enlightenment, and yogis talk about the activation of the divine self. Jesus was aligned with this same internal map. He didn't just come to teach, but to remind you that you already have everything within you. You just need to awaken. And awakening ... is a daily choice. If you want to start living this, try meditating every day for 10 minutes with a simple question. Who am I, without my fears, without my past, without my masks? This isn't cheap esotericism. It's practice, it's soul work, and it is through this silent path that true seekers access the kingdom of God, a kingdom which, as we will see below, is not in a distant heaven, but in a much more accessible place. Most people were taught that the kingdom of God is somewhere far away, something they might reach after death if they live right. But Jesus never said heaven was a place you had to wait for. He spoke of something present, alive, and already inside you. The teachings weren't about location, they were about awakening. When he said, "The kingdom is within you," he flipped everything upside down. Suddenly, salvation wasn't a destination, it was an inner realization. This completely shifts how you pray, how you meditate, how you live. Instead of reaching outward, you start turning inward. And in doing that, you begin to see the divine in your daily life. Want a practical way to feel this? Start journaling with one question. When do I feel most alive? That's usually when your spirit is most connected to the kingdom of God. It could be while painting, hiking, serving others, or simply sitting in silence. Whatever it is, follow it. That spark. That's your doorway in. And here's the thing. Jesus wasn't teaching passivity. He was activating consciousness. That same inner realm he pointed to is the same place every mystic, sage, and enlightened being talks about. It's not exclusive to saints or monks. It's available to you right now. And once you taste even a glimpse of it, the rest of his teachings begin to take on a whole new light. When Jesus said, "I and the Father are one," it wasn't just a declaration of divinity, it was an invitation. He wasn't claiming to be the only one connected to God. He was revealing a universal truth, that every soul has the potential to realize its unity with the divine. This wasn't about hierarchy. It was about oneness. In mystical teachings across cultures, this concept of non-duality appears again and again. The idea that separation is an illusion, that everything is interconnected. Jesus was speaking that same sacred language. When you shed the ego, the fears, the masks, you begin to realize you were never apart from God. You were simply unaware of the connection. You can practice this by spending 5 minutes each morning just sitting in stillness, breathing deeply, and repeating, "I am one with life." Don't force it, just observe what arises. You'll notice your thoughts begin to soften, your worries lose weight, and your sense of self starts to expand. That's not imagination, that's presence. And presence is the pathway to unity. So maybe, just maybe, Jesus wasn't putting himself above us, but showing us what we could become. His teachings weren't just about belief, they were blueprints. And if you're starting to see that, you're beginning to understand why the kingdom of God has nothing to do with geography, and everything to do with perception. When Jesus said, "If your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light," he wasn't giving an anatomy lesson. He was speaking in symbols, as great teachers often do. That single eye, many traditions refer to it as the third eye, the center of intuition, insight, and spiritual perception. It's not about seeing more, it's about seeing deeper. This isn't just poetic. In Eastern practices like yoga, the third eye is linked to the Ajna chakra, located between your eyebrows. It's believed to govern wisdom, clarity, and spiritual awakening. Jesus was tapping into this same understanding. When your inner vision awakens, you begin to see the kingdom of God, not as a myth, but as a living reality. Want to activate this awareness? Try sitting in a quiet room, eyes closed, and gently focusing your attention between your eyebrows. Don't strain, just breathe and observe. Over time, you might start noticing flashes of insight, inner peace, or even vivid dreams. That's not random. That's your spiritual sight sharpening. So no, he wasn't talking about literal vision. He was pointing to inner light, to the kind of clarity that transforms how you move through the world. And once you start seeing through that awakened lens, what used to seem ordinary begins to shine with meaning. But to walk that path, there's one thing you must be willing to face. Jesus spoke of a narrow path, a journey that demands leaving behind the comfort of the familiar. The teachings reveal that this isn't a path for the faint-hearted, it's one of self-discovery and radical transformation. It invites each seeker to shed the heavy layers of ego and materialism. Like a finely honed chisel shaping raw stone, this process refines the soul. The kingdom of God isn't found through ease, but through the courageous pursuit of inner truth. This journey is akin to climbing a steep mountain, where every step tests your resilience. Every obstacle is a lesson, every hardship a reminder to look deeper within. Jesus emphasized that real growth demands a shedding of old identities, a rebirth that goes beyond worldly measures. Through meditation, reflective study, and mindful daily actions, one gradually aligns with the divine. The process mirrors ancient initiation rituals, where only by facing your inner demons can you awaken fully to the kingdom of God. For those embarking on this path, practical steps can illuminate the way. Consider starting with a daily practice of silence, turning off distractions, and simply being with your thoughts for at least 15 minutes. Explore readings that challenge conventional ideas, such as works on mindfulness or spiritual classics that echo these teachings. Engage in small acts of courage, perhaps stepping out of your comfort zone in your creative work or personal life. Each decision becomes a stepping stone toward that higher consciousness. And so, as the seeker lingers on the threshold of transformation, they begin to understand that the narrow way is also one of immense possibility. Every trial is a spark, igniting latent truths and paving the path to the kingdom of God. Jesus didn't promise an easy journey, but the teachings suggest that the rewards far outweigh the struggle. It is here, amidst challenges and revelations, that one truly learns to live. And with that realization, the next phase of understanding beckons, inviting the exploration of more profound mysteries. Not everything Jesus taught was meant for the crowds. While his public teachings came through parables, metaphors, and stories, the real depth was saved for those who were ready. The inner circle, the disciples, Mary Magdalene, and a few others, received a different kind of message. It wasn't about religion, it was about direct experience with the kingdom of God, and that kind of experience required readiness, not just curiosity. Just like any great teacher, Jesus understood levels of consciousness. You don't hand a sword to a child. You offer milk to the beginner and solid food to the one prepared for it. The deeper messages were esoteric, not because they were meant to be exclusive, but because they needed to be protected. Shared too soon, they'd be misunderstood or misused. And let's face it, they still are. Want to walk the same path today? Try joining small study groups that explore spiritual wisdom beyond surface interpretations. Dive into ancient texts with modern commentary. Practice discernment. Ask not just what something says, but why. Jesus didn't just speak to ears. He spoke to hearts, minds, and souls ready to awaken. And that's still the case now. The kingdom of God is waiting, but only for those who are truly listening. So when people say, "Why didn't Jesus say this clearly?" maybe the better question is, was I ready to hear it? Because the moment you're truly ready, those hidden teachings start to feel like they were there all along. And speaking of hidden, there's a whole collection of texts that didn't make it into the official version of the story, but still carry echoes of the truth. Long before organized religion trimmed the narrative, there were other texts circulating among early followers of Jesus. The Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Mary, reveal a version of his teachings that feels shockingly intimate and deeply empowering. These weren't about worshipping a distant God. They were about discovering the divine within. And at the center of it all was one radical idea: know yourself. The Gnostics believed that self-knowledge was the gateway to the kingdom of God. Jesus, in these texts, often challenged his students to look inward, to question, to reflect, to find unity within the masculine and feminine energies we all carry. Not because of some gender theory, but because wholeness requires balance. You can't reach spiritual truth if half your soul is asleep. If this sounds abstract, here's something you can do right now. Write down what parts of yourself you've been ignoring. The part that wants to create, the part that needs rest, the part that longs for connection. Now ask, what would happen if I gave those parts permission to exist? That's not self-help fluff. That's soul excavation. That's the path to rediscovering the teachings of Jesus that call you inward, not outward. And these Gnostic ideas, they didn't vanish. They were buried, silenced. But now, they're being rediscovered by seekers like you, people who aren't satisfied with surface answers. Because once you start awakening to who you truly are, you begin to ask where these teachings really came from. And that question leads to one of the most mysterious chapters of all, the lost years of Jesus. There's a curious silence in the Bible when it comes to Jesus between the ages of 12 and 30, 18 years gone. But ancient records and oral traditions suggest something fascinating. During those so-called lost years, Jesus may have traveled to Egypt, India, and even Tibet. And the more you study his teachings, the more they echo the wisdom of those regions, particularly in how he spoke about the kingdom of God, inner light, and non-attachment. Take, for instance, the striking parallels between Jesus' words and the Bhagavad Gita, or Buddhist sutras. Concepts like divine union, ego death, and service without attachment appear in both. Some believe he studied yogic practices similar to Kriya Yoga disciplines focused on breath, energy, and stillness. Not because he needed to learn, but because he chose to immerse himself in the ancient wisdom that would later fuel his own revolution of consciousness. If you're curious about this path, start exploring spiritual texts from other traditions, like the Dhammapada, the Tao Te Ching, or the Upanishads. Look not for contradiction, but for convergence. Notice how often the message aligns with what Jesus said. The kingdom of God is within, and awakening is a personal journey. You don't need to abandon your faith. You just need to expand your understanding of where those teachings might have been shaped. And suddenly, the image of Jesus shifts. He's no longer just a preacher from Nazareth. He becomes a global seeker, a student of truth, a man who sat in silence with monks and mystics. And what he brought back wasn't doctrine, it was transformation, a fire that still burns today. And if you're ready to walk that same path, there's one last piece you need to hear. The teachings of Jesus were never meant to be passive. They were an open invitation, a call to adventure, but not one that takes place in distant lands. This journey unfolds inside you. Every fear faced, every illusion shed, every truth embraced, is a step closer to the kingdom of God. Not tomorrow, not after death. Now. It's not about believing harder, it's about waking up. The spiritual path isn't glamorous. It's raw, sometimes messy, and deeply personal. But it's also where the magic happens. Jesus didn't hand out certificates of holiness. He challenged people to change, to love deeper, to see clearer. And those who accepted that invitation became more than followers. They became co-creators with the divine. That's what the kingdom of God looks like in motion. Want to start this journey today? Begin by asking better questions. Not what should I do, but who am I becoming? Surround yourself with seekers, not just believers. Reflect, meditate, walk in nature without your phone. Read works that stretch your soul. And most importantly, stop waiting for permission. Jesus didn't ask for it, and neither should you, because the deeper you go, the more alive everything becomes. Every breath, every interaction, every moment starts to shimmer with purpose. The kingdom of God isn't out there. It's been whispering inside you this whole time. And now that you've heard its call, you can never unhear it. So now that you've seen what was hidden, what are you going to do with it? Will you let these revelations fade like another passing video, or will you start living them? Because the teachings of Jesus were never meant to sit on a shelf. They were meant to transform your life from the inside out. What parts of your soul have you been ignoring? What inner truths are waiting to be awakened? The kingdom of God isn't coming. It's already here, whispering through your intuition, through every synchronicity, through that deep knowing you've always carried. The question is, are you ready to listen? If this message stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Comment below what part of this truth hit you the hardest. And if you want to keep walking this path of hidden wisdom and inner power, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications. That way, you won't miss the next layer of truth we're about to uncover together.